everybody and welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of DIY and murder. This is my second video of making a DIY and a murder video. Thank you so much for all the beautiful feedback on my last video. You know, something new trying out that I've never seen on YouTube. So having your guys' feedback was very precious to me. But part of that feedback was a little contradicting. So if you didn't see my video yet, what I did a DIY and I'm in the corner of the video talking about a murder story. And I don't talk about the DIY at all. Some people commented and told me that they actually really had a hard time following the DIY while I was in the corner because they were so engrossed in hearing what I had to say that they couldn't pay attention to the DIY and it was just way too much for them. And I had other people say they loved having me in the corner because they loved watching me in the corner and being engaged in the story that way. So having very contradictory type of feedback for this makes it a little bit harder to improve and change this as I go along. And again, nobody's ever done this before, so you know, I don't have anyone else to kind of look at to see how they're doing that. I reflected a little bit more on this. I recognized that the DIY that I actually did to start this type of series was a little bit complicated. Like, it was multi-steps. There was so much to do in that one that I totally get it. That might have been a way too intensive a DIY to start off with the murder story. So I'm going to, for this video, do the same thing again. I'm going to be in the corner of this video, but I'm going to do some DIYs that are quite simple, like 1 to 3 steps that are very easy to watch, that you don't really have to think much about it. And that was kind of my original goal and plan of this, is to kind of have stuff that doesn't require a lot of brain power to think about the DIY. So I'm gonna try it out. I'd love to know your guys' feedback if this works a lot better. If you would like to watch a DIY, or if you would like to listen to a murder story, or hopefully you're here to do both, then please keep watching. Today we're going to be talking about the Carmichael family. So the Carmichael family lived in Brooklyn, New York. This family consisted of Madeline Carmichael. She was the mother, the matriarch of this family. And she had a son named Gregory, a daughter named Sabrina, and then her youngest son, Andre. There's quite a difference in age between each of the siblings. So Andre being the youngest, Sabrina was about 5 to 6 years older, and Gregory was about 15 years older than him. So the mother, Madeline, and Gregory, the older brother, they were actually quite abusive to the younger children, common in their home since they were born. For example, Madeline had banned Sabrina and Andre to ever go into her closet in her bedroom. She would like cover it up with like bookcases or her bed or something. They were just forbidden to ever go in there. And you know, naturally, when someone tells you you can't do something, especially as children, you get a little bit curious to know, why can't I do that thing? So one day Sabrina and Andre decided to be a little bit snoopy and they wanted to go to the closet to see what was in it, thinking maybe there's a bunch of toys for them, right? So exciting because there's little kids. Before they got their chance to open up and see what was inside there, their mom caught them and Madeline and Gregory ended up beating the children over this. So it's pretty sad. I have reports, I think 8 complaints against her with child welfare, but child welfare did not act on it. So unfortunately, these children kind of slipped through the cracks and were not helped out at the time. One day when Andre was about 12 years old, his aunt had asked him, you know, how is your twin sister doing? And he's like, twin sister? What twin sister? He thought that was like a weird question because he didn't have a twin sister, to his knowledge. He went to his mom and Gregory and asked about this comment that aunt made about his twin sister, which they did not answer him and gave him a beating for even asking that question. So in 1988, Madeline decided that she was going to put her children into foster care, so she was going to be giving all of them up. She told her family that she was too poor and couldn't afford to take care of them anymore. Fast forward a few years later, down the road in 1995, and him and Sabrina meet at a family reunion. So Andre is still thinking about this possible twin sister. He's quite suspicious that maybe he had one, and he would try to bring this up to Sabrina to ask her, does he have a twin sister, to which she just like would not answer him. She refused to give him any story. Sabrina just tried to advise him to just kind of drop that and, you know, stop searching for this twin sister that he suspects that he might have had, because it just will tear the whole family apart if he just keeps poking and asking questions. A few years later again, so Andre finally sees his mom in 1999 and he brings his 3-year-old daughter with him to meet her and told him not to bring her around him anymore, you know, which is kind of sad. Andre was getting kind of sick of all this. Again, he's been living for years and years, wondering about a twin sister. Nobody's giving him answers. It was bothering Sabrina once again about it, and he might have said something like he's gonna get a private investigator. He wants to find out what happened and see if his suspicions about a twin sister is correct. So telling Sabrina that, she decided to tell him the truth, and she made him sign a contract saying that he will not repeat what she's about to tell him, and that's the only way she's gonna tell him. So she told him when she was about 8 years old, he did have a twin sister. Her name was Latanisha. So what had happened was when she was 3 years old, Latanisha and Andre, they're twins, right? So they're both 3 years old. Latanisha ended up vomiting during dinner. So this enraged Madeline and Gregory, so they took turns beating the little 3-year-old up. This beating resulted in Latanisha stopping breathing and eventually to her death. And Sabrina claims that she saw this whole thing go down when she was 8 years old. Instead of calling the cops, Madeline and Gregory decided to save this body, wrap it up in some newspaper and a baby blanket and a plastic bag, and put it into a Foot Locker and put it into her closet. And Gregory was about 17 at this time. They put the baby in the Foot Locker, and even when they moved houses, Madeline brought the Foot Locker and the baby. So essentially this whole family was living with this corpse. Like, and Gregory and Madeline knew that they were living with the corpse. Like, yikes. Sabrina said she didn't tell anyone about this because she was fearful for her own life, being 8 years old and witnessing your mother and your brother beat your little sister to death, and, you know, putting the body into a little Foot Locker. Yeah, you know, I feel ya. That's pretty intense, and I can see why she would be quite scared to speak up. So Andre, hearing what he just heard, did what a normal person would do and went to the cops and told them about his mother and brother murdering his twin sister that he didn't even know existed. Like, how crazy would that be to find out you had a twin sister and wondered where she went, and to find out that she was murdered? Oh my goodness. So on November 5th, 1999, the police went to Madeline's house to raid her house and her apartment. So they went to the closet where there's a whole bunch of air fresheners. They found the Foot Locker, and they opened up the Foot Locker, found the mummified body of a little 3-year-old that was wrapped up in newspaper that dated November 4th, 1979, wrapped up in a baby blanket and wrapped up into 4 plastic bags. So that's crazy, again, that they were living with this corpse. Madeline and Gregory were obviously arrested for this. Madeline was 61 at the time, and Gregory was about 38 years old at this time. So they went and waived their rights to a jury trial because they felt that it might be too emotional to have a jury, because yeah, you know, when a mom and a teen boy decide to kill an innocent 3-year-old child for vomiting at dinner, yeah, that's gonna definitely tug on people's heartstrings, and they're probably not gonna be very happy or kind to you. They had 10 days of a non-jury trial in the state Supreme Court in Brooklyn. Madeline's lawyers tried to argue that there was actually no evidence of abuse that caused the child to die, and that this was an accident, but that didn't really hold up very well. So Madeline was convicted of 2nd-degree murder and indifference to a human life. That sentence ends up being about 25 to life in prison. They went a little bit lighter on Gregory. I'm not sure if it was because he was a minor at the time, but he ended up getting 1 to 4 years. So going back to the foster care, people must have known about Latanisha. People obviously knew Andre and Latanisha were twins and wondered about that. It was kind of part of why Madeline sent the children to foster care, because she was able to say that she sent Latanisha down south to a better family. Nobody really questioned where this child was. And some of the neighbors said Madeline was a little bit eccentric, and that she would claim she would hear constant baby crying. She lived in a child-free building, so there actually was no babies, because she would make complaints about constant baby crying. Maybe it was the ghost of her daughter that she murdered that was in her closet. Who knows? Bit of a sad story, and you know, for Sabrina and Andre especially, for Sabrina to kind of hold that type of secret for over 20 years and finally letting that out and losing now basically her younger sister, her mom and brother, and Andre, you know, he never even had the chance to even know about his identical twin sister. But you know, good on him for not giving up and trying to keep finding out what happened to her. But RIP Latanisha, but she got the justice that she deserved, because he didn't give up on that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked the story. Well, you know, I hope you didn't like the story, but I hope this is interesting. This is like a weird thing to talk about, being like, gee, I hope you like the story. I hope you like the DIY, so I hope that was a lot easier to follow along than my previous one, and I'm so excited. I have so many ideas of more videos to come. Please let me know how you felt about this video, and if it was a lot easier to watch and follow along the DIY because they were a lot simpler, or if it was still distracting or what. I'd love your feedback. Until the next video, bye!